Hello and welcome to Power Moves, the podcast all about giving you insights into what makes successful entrepreneurs tick. Not just hearing about their successes, but hearing exactly what they did to create that success. Today, I have Will Zapata with me. Will is someone I've known for many years. I've had the pleasure of working with him in his business and just having him as a friend as well. So, Will, thank you for giving us your time today. Appreciate you.
Absolutely, Alex. I do appreciate you even taking the time to think about me. It feels great, and I'm really excited just to be a service to other people, and I'm sure that there's tons of things we can all learn from this.
Absolutely. And I do know that about you in many conversations. You're just happy to be a servant. So I love that. For those that don't know you, would love for you to do a quick intro to who you are, what you've done in business, so they can have more context.
Absolutely. So again, Will Zapata, gonna give my full government name, Wilfred Zapata. And I've had the opportunity to run, manage a solar company, both, working for someone else and then even for myself as well, doing online virtual consultation and closes while also helping closing in person, and then growing and evolving from there as well.
Amazing, my friend. Great. Now, for you, are you originally from the US or did you, like this part of the US, or did you move here from the DR? What's your background and story?
Yeah, so I'm gonna say it outright. I'm more American than a cheeseburger. Red, white, and blue is in me. I did like emigrate to the United States when I was a year and like 6 months, but like it's just I don't count that. Like if you ever heard me talk Spanish, somebody's gonna be like, "Oh, you're definitely have an accent, right?"
Sure.
Um, yeah, so that's why I say, again, I was raised and really just grew up here, specifically in, the Northeast, Rhode Island, of
Hmm.
the United States. So, but yeah, I have my backgrounds in the Dominican Republic.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved always when you're, visiting family and doing those trips. So wanted to do a shout out to the DR for
I
you.
appreciate it.
So question for you, did your introduction into just the working world start in entrepreneurship, or did you work for someone else before you became your own boss, so to speak?
Yeah, so I love this question just to start off because I always say that, at least for me, I've always felt like I was the least qualified to be an entrepreneur. I never in my wildest dreams would have thought that this was the route that I would have taken. For the most part, I've always worked for someone else. I would gladly and openly say I think I was the greatest employee ever. Honestly, I don't know how it didn't work out, right? So no, like if you had, again, when I was starting off, I never would have thought that I would have gone into entrepreneurship. It kind of just happened based on the creator just having certain situations happen in my life that's where it headed to. But
Mm,
yeah, I thought I was gonna work for a place for a long time and just kind of work my way up.
got it. What pushed you over the edge into entrepreneurship?
I would say so. There was like a few different things that happened, but if like okay, if I had to say what was like the real big thing is I wanted freedom and I
Mm,
wanted to be able to work when I wanted, where I wanted. This doesn't mean that it's like, oh, I want to, work 4 hours a week or a month. No, no, no. I wanted to put in grueling amounts of hours and I wanted to work till 1, 2, 3 in the morning. And then, regardless of what either company or position I was in, I didn't get that. And then I had an
mm,
opportunity to kind of jump ship and I just
mm.
went for it.
Amazing. So where did you jump ship to?
I jumped ship into solar.
Wow. So
Yeah.
first introduction into entrepreneurship into solar.
Yeah, yeah. And to kind of backtrack, right? The reason it, was kind of simple was because I was working for a solar company before. Now, it didn't mean that I thought that I knew it all. And I'm like, oh, again, it just really came from an opportunity of growth. And I just felt
Hmm.
like, this, I had certain things in a line. And I was like, if there's ever going to be an opportunity, this is it. And it just happened to be solar. But yeah, definitely. And the reason why I got that sales job, because I used to, I would say to myself, I want to learn how to be in sales before I start my own business.
Sure. Why do you think that's important?
Um, just speaking from a personal perspective, I think one has to understand how, how hard it is to actually, acquire a lead,
Hmm.
how valuable it is. I think that one has to understand that, again, my perspective, that we are probably living in one of the greatest opportunities when it comes to the country, the invention of the internet, and you start to realize, at least for me, you're like, oh, you're not that special, which means
Hmm.
that you create, what makes you special by trying to serve the client above and beyond, by learning other skills, by when you don't know nothing, putting in the amount of work that it takes, learning
Hmm.
discipline, and at least for me, like this is the final caveat for me, is like it showed me the possibility of income. And I
Sure.
think that if you can do well with managing your money and you have an opportunity to take a hold of your income, you could truly not only put yourself in a different position positively, but those that
Hmm.
come after you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it was interesting joining the workforce because I started out as an employee very young. I actually started working at the age of 12 for like a legit company in California and would do like summer and winter jobs, but it was in customer service for them. And they were a software company. And I was always growing up kind of like the most, I guess, industrious of my friends. Like I just loved the idea of working and making money. And it wasn't like I spent the money on stupid stuff. I just loved the reward of having a place to work and like doing good work. And when I was in customer service, it's the best department to be in because you get to hear all the upset customers. That's a joke. It's not the funnest job, but what was interesting is I was on the second floor of this company I worked for. And so on my side was more of the like technical customer service type stuff. On the other side of that floor was the sales team. And every time they got a sale, they actually rung a bell that was attached to the wall. And so you would hear like all this excitement, all this electricity, just people being alive over there
Hmm.
while I'm sitting over here while someone's like cursing about how they're going to destroy their computer because their software is not working and they're just all angry. I'm like, wow, I would much rather be over there. And so opportunities arose and I eventually grooved my way into sales. And I'd have to say that what I've loved most about sales and how it's related to me being a business owner is it actually taught me communication and how to communicate with people because sales isn't the sheer essence of, hey, what do you want? Okay, I have that thing. Great. You give me money, right? But sales is the art of communication. It's the art of getting to understand another person, their belief system, how they make decisions, what's important to them, and getting their agreement that what you have is in alignment with those things. Or obviously recognizing when there's a disconnect, you don't want to sell a person that is just going to come around and be a bad customer because they're not a good fit or anything like that. But I would say like being able to communicate and ergo know sales is a huge part of being a business owner because you have to sell your staff, you have to sell your customers, you have to sell your vendors. Everything is a sales conversation when you look at it through that lens.
1,000%. Like I couldn't agree with you more, right? I wanted to add, right? I guess so. Now I am agreeing
Yeah.
with you more, but
Here we go.
basically, it's like it teaches you patience. Like you learn
Mm,
so much from people, and one of the biggest things that I've learned from sales is how to not take things personal. Like
mm,
you just can't take it personal. You got to understand that people are going to do whatever is in their best interest, whether that's doing business with you or not. And the way that I look at it is that as long as, like you mentioned, you can communicate and you can properly tell your story to that other client and, leave enough of an impression that they do want to move forward with you, I think that that's an
Hmm.
ultimate win. But definitely the amount of patience that I'm like, oh, you've learned from people, it's astounding, because at the end of the day, no matter what you do, you're going to interact with people. No matter what you do, you're going to interact with people. So,
Yeah, 1,000%.
hmm
Great, man. Well, I loved hearing how you got into building your business. Now, one of the perks about being your own owner is you get to set the rules, you get to kind of design how your business is going to be, what role you're going to play, and stuff like that. And I feel like that has a lot to do with the personality of the individual building it. There are some that want to just go completely hard in the paint. They want to build something that's massive, that is going to last for hundreds of years. And like they
hmm
have this really big idea. And I absolutely love those people for that. And then you
hmm
have other people that, the goals are much smaller, but that's because they have goals other than just building this one thing. I'm curious for you, which category do you fit in?
hmm
And how has that influenced your business? Um, what did you learn along the way, etc.?
Yeah. Another great question, brother. So, to first kind of, you kind of gave 2 points, and this is how I'm going to answer it. What I would want is I want to create an ecosystem that is suitable for my family and I.
Mm,
So, when it comes to, I love that you said some people want to go hard in the paint and they want to create something that's going to last hundreds of years, 1000%. And I can totally relate to that because prior to being a father, the first time, but then really when I was a father the second time, it's like, and now being a father again, right? You, you kind of like, this is what I wanted and this is what I went super hard with. And I kind of want to tie it back to the money. And, at least for
sure,
someone like me, I was fortunate enough that because I had this ecosystem in mind, I always thought about, well, what happens in 12 months, 18 months, 24 months if things don't go well? Or,
sure.
kind of then using that where you're like, for me, one of the biggest things I've always wanted to overcome, and that's why I got into sales was, financial freedom. And if you can kind of use that to then create a life that's sustainable for you, at least I think that that should be the goal. At least that's my goal. And
Hmm.
that's the way that I've allowed it. So now to answer the second portion, how have I, changed and run my business? I go back to it as having a lot more patience.
Mm,
It's so easy, especially in today's world, to think that because you want this and because you feel like you've put in the work, you deserve to get X, Y, and Z, and you expect that when you're in, let's say, step one, that you're supposed to be in step three. But we
mm,
don't realize that it takes time and patience to get to step three, right? Like you're gonna
totally.
get there. It's just it's gonna happen when it's gonna happen. Side note, right? I've gotten into gardening and I've realized, right, when I look at my tomatoes, I don't be like, tomatoes, why aren't you growing more? Why aren't you growing faster? Right? You're kind of like, when they're ready to grow, they'll grow. But we don't give
Oh,
that same reflection to ourselves, right?
sure.
We're like, no, you
Totally.
gotta be here because of whatever you thought was important to you meant that if you achieved X, Y, and Z goals, that that somehow meant something for you. I hope that
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, and we have this in common being fathers. So, like, my eldest daughter, she's 7, and she blows me away with just how competent and capable she is at a lot of things. And a personality trait that I love about her is just her determination to do things. And like, she wants to walk across the street, great, she's going to walk across the street. She doesn't have to be like, oh, like, is this the right time to walk across the street? Do I need to like make sure that, someone is near me or anything like that? She's like, and then just goes and does it. So it's very cool. But she ran into something recently where she wasn't immediately good at it. And it was super frustrating for her, right? I think she was like building something out of Legos, something like that, right? And it frustrated her that she wasn't actually nailing it on the first try because that is so customary for her, in gymnastics or art or other skills that she has. And it made me really look at that like, wow, we really ought to look at what should we expect someone to be able to do in their first 30 days. And like, as long as they're doing the right things and they're showing the right characteristics and whatnot, and we're supporting them and they can accept that support, like, great. We should be like, bless me, like willing to have that slow growth occur with that person.
100%. Yeah. And you, like, again, just looking at it again, compare it to the vegetables when you're growing it. You're not rushing to grow it. You're like understanding this is
It's
the
the
state that
best
it's supposed to
example.
be. And you know what I'm saying? You don't get mad at your flowers when they
Sure.
don't bloom right away. And again, I think that because of maybe outside influences that we may not even be aware ourselves, we sometimes don't give ourselves that same patience and understanding. And I did want to say bless you. I just didn't want to interrupt you while you was
Thank you.
talking.
Appreciate that. We have that recorded. Now, well, I want to come back to the fatherhood side of things and, how you've, I look at work-life balance is not an actual thing. I look at it as work-life integration. You're integrating your work and your life as a business owner, and you're deciding what you want to prioritize and where you want to push the throttle and stuff like that. But just from the entrepreneurial side of things and the lessons you've learned, I've known you and I've had a good insight into your business for the past number of years. I know a lot of stories. I know a lot of
Hmm.
things that have occurred,
Hmm.
right? Um, I'm curious to know, what do you feel was the toughest decision you had to make as a business owner with regards to this business in solar?
Um, the toughest business I've had to, I'm sorry, decision I've had to make is letting people go. Unfortunately, just due to fluctuations in the market. And these are people that like, I'm the kind of person, right? Regardless, I don't see like employee, boss titles. You know me. I've never been a fan of titles or nothing. I think that the respect is earned based on the work that you put in, regardless of position.
Sure.
And especially with people that I've had years with, I tend to build a friendship with them. I tend to always want to be the one to give 51% in the relationship. And it's my attempt at putting the best foot forward, almost as a contingency plans that, like, at least if things don't go right, you kind of be like, at least I tried my best.
Mm.
The hardest decision was just letting people go. I did it it just no longer made financial sense. And I'm the first person to like, hey man, maybe I can split my burger in half so that way we can both share it. You know what I'm saying? It was
It's,
just like, it just didn't
so
make
you're
sense. That
talking
would,
about in times where you had someone that obviously was working for you, was reliant on this job, you seeing like want to help this person out, but at the same time, for whatever reason, it's not it's not worthwhile for the business for them to continue working with you, is what you're saying.
correct. And again, I've tried, you tried helping people. It's just circumstances for whatever reason. It may be not even be that they can't control it. Sometimes things are slow, right?
Sure.
And you just can't do it. So that's probably been the hardest thing. And to add to that, I'm the kind of person that I do my best to control what I can control. um
Hmm.
you know this about me. I'm very economically conservative. I do my
Right.
best to live on less, and it kind of goes back to being able to give more, right? I think you can do more with less. But again, even in situations, sometimes you gotta make those hard decisions.
Sure, totally. The way that I view it is like, if someone is not there to collect a paycheck, but they're actually there for the joy of doing good work and contributing to the group and helping the group survive, they're not going to want to be in a position where there's nothing to do or nothing valuable to do, or that they're kind of waiting around most of the time. They're
Hmm.
If they're the personality person that wants to do good things, they're not going to stick around for that. So you kind of continuing that show on the road doesn't actually do anybody any favors. And I've seen it actually taint the personality of people too, where they kind of now shift into this, well, because I'm here, you should pay me kind of mindset, can kind of warp people a bit. So I can understand how that would be a tough decision to make, but one that is ultimately better for everyone involved.
It's made me a way better person. It's one of those things, right? So I love that you brought the example of your baby girl because you mentioned that she's genuinely been good at stuff. For me, I'm gonna say that I'm a Taurus, so I'm hard-headed, and the creator has to kind of like bang things into my head, right? Where like I don't know, like I'll be like, yo, Will, we've tried 50 times, it hasn't worked. I'd be like, yeah, but there could be that 51st time, right? I'm kind of like that. But once I do and I learn, I love it because now I'm like, okay, now I have the strength to understand that should that situation come up again, which it will, right? Now I'm like, okay, well, not only am I going to let this person go sooner because of X, Y, and Z, but you realize that by doing this, it's actually way more beneficial for them and beneficial
Mhm.
for you and the company as a whole. So I'm very grateful for those kind of hard decisions I've had to make and or many mistakes I've made and continue to
Totally. Well, we're
make.
learning from them for sure. I hope to
hmm
make 99 more mistakes this month.
That's what I'm saying, brother. Like, I just feel like I just have to get it right once, right? So,
Sure. Now, you starting this business, you're coming into it the mindset of like you are yourself. You obviously had to take care of yourself and maybe take care of some family or whatever. Um, but you also chose to live more of a living on less sort of mindset and style. You became a father multiple times over during owning this business. How did you run your business and what did it look like when you were in that earlier state? And, did you have to go through some sort of transition with the business as you transitioned into fatherhood? What's that journey?
yeah, love the question, brother. So, before being a father, I was 100% gun ho on business. Like, 7 days a week, I was all about it. Um, And, I don't know, maybe part of me subconsciously, like, I always thought that I was like, things can't be this good, right? Because yes, am I working hard, but I also feel like I've been being very fortunate, right? And I've had the mindset of like, okay, things are gonna shift. I don't know when, so you kind of have to prepare for that storm, right?
Sure.
So I've kind of had that in mind. So I was 100% all in, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Even after becoming a father the first time, this is where I'm going back to me being hard-headed. My daughter was born in less than 2 weeks. I left to go on a blitz. Um,
Door to
look,
door blitz?
it was a virtual blitz.
Oh, virtual blitz. Okay.
Yeah,
Got it.
but we were like in a house and we were all together, right? But
Hmm.
basically, I went to go do that, and my daughter wasn't even 2 weeks. And to kind of show you how gun ho was about work, I closed the deal with my daughter literally in the arms, and I'm like, like she's like maybe like less than a week coming home from the hospital, but I'm still working. The day that
Yeah.
my daughter was born, I was taking a consultation, right? So it's the kind of, again, right, brother? Just kind of the mindset that I had, I was all in. And this is where kind of going into the transition, right? Again, I'm very thankful for a lot of the things that happen in life. Because I had certain situations happening with my first daughter, I decided that this time around I was going to put my family first.
Mm.
I said to myself that even when I had my first daughter, I was putting money away like they were going to not print it. Doesn't mean that I'm rich by any standards, but it's just I decided that I was going to live well below my means and just plan for a rainy day in the future. And then the transition that I made is I just started to be much more intentional with my time and my business. Um, I realized that I was more becoming a father the second time around made me realize that I'm more than, oh, I do solar, or hey, I have a solar business, or hey, this is what I do for work. I realized that the title of being a father meant a lot more to me.
Mm.
Um, and I said to myself that, I understand that everything goes through seasons, and there's gonna be a time in a moment in time where my kids are not gonna run to me, right? There's gonna be a time where I'm gonna pick up my son, and it's gonna be the last time, and I won't know when that time is. And I just decided that I'm going to be as present as I possibly can
Mm-hmm.
because to me, having the admiration and making my children proud just happened to surpass being like, oh, you have a successful business. Doesn't mean that they
Mm-hmm.
both don't work together. It just means that my children are my priority at this current moment.
Sure. Absolutely. Okay. And, I definitely love that you've discovered that about yourself. You've prioritized that for your family, and still you have a business set up as well today. So you've
Hmm.
really changed, I guess, like where you've put your focus on, but you're more like holistically, I guess, running everything. And I would expect you're satisfied with how everything is going. Not that
Yeah,
everything's
brother.
ever perfect.
Correct. Like, I love that you said that. Not that everything is ever perfect. And again, I'm a big kind of person like, okay, what can you control? I think that these are lessons that I needed to go through. Again, I'm really hard-headed. The creator knows me better than I know myself. So, regardless, I realized that I can do a lot more with less. I realized that, um, like, I guess the perception or my identity or what other people think as far as business really doesn't even matter.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then also too, right? Like I feel like, everybody like, has good and bad times, right? Like that's the like you just kind of know, right? And you're like the only difference between somebody that's successful in business or not successful in business is the person that just quit. So to
Sure.
me, that's just the way that I look at it, and I tend to look at things not necessarily as to what's happening right now, but I'm like, what can happen in the next 10 to 20 to 30 years? It's the way that
Sure.
I tend to have an outlook.
Yeah, and a lot of people struggle with thinking that far out because people are still solving problems that are right in front of them and maybe taking short-term routes or solutions to address those problems.
Yeah, and brother, again, this is just from my own experience that I think that I'm like, I wish I knew is sometimes the things that you think are problems are not problems.
Mm,
Sometimes we tend to over complicate our lives, thinking that we need to either do certain things or I was looking back at it and I was like, why did I think I needed to close that many deals? I didn't even,
hmm.
uh, there's other ways I could have done it. I could have gone
Yeah,
deeper. But you think that those things are things. So you're like, oh, if I'm not doing A, this is a problem. But you're like, no, it's probably not a problem. It's probably other things that are bigger problems that you can focus on. And, maybe it's just one or two things. And
right.
again, doing more with less.
Totally. So, one thing that I noticed for myself with my family, right, is as my wife and I have been together, which has been 10 years so far, we've had four children along the way. We're about to have our fifth. We've traded roles in our household between like me being the main breadwinner, her being the main breadwinner, us jointly building at the same time, to like going back to where the main focus is me in terms of income generation and her really like helping manage our future as a family and like creating on the family we have and whatnot. I have felt because of those shifts, different internal conflicts as father, husband, but also business owner. You know, I have to almost jockey the where should I be putting my time, and also just like being pulled in multiple directions. Have you struggled at all with that?
1 trillion%, brother. Being 100% candidly, this is my own struggle as a man is you always want to feel like you're the provider, right? At least for me, that's the way that I came into the relationship with my partner is I've always been the provider. Even till now, I take on maybe 90 to 95, 97% of the utility costs at our home. And I've had conversations with my partner where I'm like, well, make sure that you're saving every penny, right? Because there's going to come a time where I'm going to need your help, right? I'm like, just make sure that you're saving every penny. So definitely, I think for me, I've always felt more insecurity because at least for me as a man, I'm the kind of person that I can only add value to myself, like my self value is when I'm producing. And
Mm.
sometimes when you're not going through those situations, you have doubt, you ask yourself, can you do it? For me, I'm like, damn, brother, do you even matter? All these things that we go through as men, right? Because we're
Mm.
doing it for our families, we're looking to create a legacy or whatever the case might be. So that's definitely happened. One thing that works very well in our household is we tend to do roles that we either love or are strongest at. And for me, I love to do it all. When it comes to cooking, cleaning, laundry, taking care of the children, I have no problem with it. And this is a unique situation for me at this current situation is just that I've been very good with managing my money. So even if like, for example, hey, we gotta go hunt something, financially I can be like, well, we can open up a jar and at least we know it'll get us through this moment, right?
Right.
And so even if like for example my partner is about to give birth, I have to kind of take on more things because as they're later on, things just get more difficult and it's kind of like, you know, we have to kind of open up the jar or going back to it, I try to do the things that I can control, and that's why we started a garden because I was like, food is expensive, how can I learn? You just kind of work any way you can, and at the end of the
Sure.
day, brother, freedom is so important to me, right? So freedom is not just stacked on financially for me, it's independence, so it's like another
Mm.
layer of the freedom triangle pyramid I'm looking to create for my family.
Totally. Well, I love that. You really adopt the whole, hey, I'm being master and creator of my own universe, and I have a power of choice as to like where I want to put my interest and time. Because, for you yourself, I've known that about you. You love leaving, living a meaningful life, but not a materialistic one, not one where, you know, you're over exuberant with your spending or anything like that. And you're really thinking with just financially being protected and prepared and things like that. And that obviously suits you and works for your family. And it's a cool thing about entrepreneurship is you don't have to change who you are to be an entrepreneur and achieve your definition of success. Your
Hmm.
definition of success and what makes you happy in living this life is, dude, nobody else's business but your own. And it gives a great example to that sliver of society who is like, hey, I don't want to work for someone else, but I also don't want to like be an all consumed, hyperactive business person. Like, there isn't only one version of a business owner, right? And that's what I love about this conversation that we're having and just having you on here because it shows that there is a freedom of choice in terms of how do you want to play this game? Because at the end of the day, money is just a tool, it's just energy to further whatever purpose or goals that we have. And so, like, it's more important that you're happy at the end of the day with whatever it is you're doing.
1,000%. If I can add some Seneca, I was reading Seneca this week, and he said this. I'm going to summarize what it basically said. But it's on the idea of living a long life, and he says that we do have a more than abundant life. It's just a lot of it is wasted. And he says you'll look at somebody that might spend all of their time in business, right, or after money or material things, and realize that they didn't have enough time, as opposed to somebody, the wise man, will look at things, will be intentional with his time and focus on the things that matter. And
Mm,
that's just one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is like, yes, focus on the things that are going to give you the most amount of spiritual reward, right?
sure,
For me, being a father, being present with my children, I look at it, I'm like, if my kid is smart enough, he can run the business and 10x it. You know what I'm saying?
sure,
Like what's
totally.
gonna be important, I'm gonna be more like, remember that time we did X, Y, and Z? That's what's more important to me.
Yeah, absolutely. But every once in a while in these episodes, we get to a rapid fire section when we have the time. So I'd love to just fling some questions at you and see what first comes to mind.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that.
Okay, great. So, what do you feel is the biggest mistake entrepreneurs make?
From personal experience, I think it's just thinking too short term. Again, this is something specific to me, but brother, I would not be in the position that I am right now if I just didn't assume that, like, you're not gonna have it as good as I did at the time, or you're not gonna go through those cycles. So live well below your means, right? If you're doing an incredible in your life, like, you should just double and triple down, right? And just understand that a rainy day may come. What that looks like for you, I would never know, right? Like, it's different for
Hmm.
different people, but I think the biggest mistakes is that we don't think long term. And when it comes to entrepreneurship, I'm learning this, you got to think 10, 20, 30, 50 years
Hmm.
ahead when it comes to your
Yeah,
business and your lifestyle.
love that. What do you feel is the most underrated leadership skill?
Patience. Um, I think going back to it is just you gotta have patience. I think as a leader, you gotta understand that things take time, that things will not work out the way that you think they will. People will do things that you never thought they were going to do. Things will happen that you couldn't have expected, and just having the patience to understand that that is part of your journey and there's a lesson that is in it. You just got to
Hmm.
have the patience to be like, okay, I'm supposed to learn something, let me just continue
Totally.
again, and so on and so forth, which goes back to what I said. We got to think in decades when it comes to
Totally.
business.
Yeah. Just a break for a second from this. I've really been looking at entrepreneurship as every single decision you make, every move you take, like rarely will any of those end your career or put you in such dire straits that you couldn't come back from it. And so to look at it as like the more at bats you have and the more reps you put in, the higher probability you're going to get it right and that it's going to pay off. But the moment you start to withdraw the at bats you take or the swings you make, that's when you actually cap your potential.
Yeah, yeah, I 100% agree with you, brother. And I love that you said this earlier when you said entrepreneurship is about you being, I'm going to summarize, but it's about you being able to have a business that's uniquely to you or around you. And
Hmm.
one of the things for me, I said, I'm like, listen, man, I don't want to have to tell a lie to be really good in sales. So I'd rather be able to work really, really hard, make sure that I'm knowledgeable, speak with clarity, be as intentional as I possibly can. And I think as long as you don't do nothing that's like not trustworthy or something unethical,
Sure.
like you said, you can always bounce back from it. That's what keeps me going. I always say,
Yeah,
even if the bank account is negative 2,000, I just need that one deal.
totally. So back to rapid fire. What do you think is the best investment you've made in yourself?
The best investment that I've made in myself, man. I'm not gonna count the children. I'm not gonna count that because that would have been like an easy thing to say. I think the best investment I've ever made into myself, brother, was getting into working out.
Mm,
Regardless of what you do, man, because if there's one thing that I've learned and I'm continuing to learn is that life can suck at times. But man, if you can just get into the habit of working out, if you can get into it as young as you possibly can, because at the end of the day, no matter what life can throw at you, as long as like you're healthy, you still got another shot. And I think that we don't put enough emphasis on how incredible our
hmm.
body is and how much of a temple it is. So I would say the greatest investment it would be working out, getting into it. I started when I was probably like 14 years old. I had an option between buying 150 pair, like $150 pair of Jordans, or buying a weight bench, and I'm glad that I bought the weight bench.
Oh, wow.
And I saved like $30. It was like 120. So
And he got it as a deal. I love it. Um, yeah, I'd have to agree with you. Investing your body, investing your mind, like pretty much anything that promotes longevity and just greater skill set development is obviously a worthwhile investment. So I love that you brought up health and being consistent at working out spills over into consistencies in other parts of your life. And just like with sales, it is a tough thing to work out. But I think it's more the mental, you run into the mental friction of starting the workout. But once you're actually in flow on the workout, it's, you're not even like thinking about how difficult it was. You're just in it.
Brother, I'm ambitiously lazy. That's why I run. I run because I'm like, oh, I don't have to think. I just go. I can put on my shoes
Sure.
and just go. Like, I don't have to think
Sure.
about I'm working chest, arms, especially when, again, I'm still learning and adapting to my children. This is like where I'm like the least amount of thinking that I need to do. It
Yeah.
also doubles down as like meditation because I get to just have mental diarrhea. I get to talk to the creator. I get to cry if I need to. You know what I'm
Mental
saying, brother?
diarrhea.
So yeah, so it just does so much things for me that's why I'm like, yeah, man, if you can get into working out, it's so great.
Um, what would you say is one thing every entrepreneur should prioritize more?
One thing that every entrepreneur should prioritize, man, if it's just entrepreneurship, I would really say the finances.
Mm,
Um, like in entrepreneurship, things can be so up and down, right? That it can
mhm,
be so predictable that I think that focusing on the finances, learning how to live with less, especially if you're looking to create, something that's long lasting. You definitely want to
mhm,
focus on the finances. At the end of the day, it's just going to give you the most power, right? It's going to give you the most
mhm.
option. It's going to give you the most amount of opportunities. So,
Sure.
if I could go back and talk to myself when I was starting a business, I would have told myself, sleep in the office. And it sounds seriously because especially when you're like actually making money, that's when you should try to be as economically conservative as possible
Sure.
because again, you understand that things go in cycles. So
I love it. It's a great idea. And obviously, we have no shortage of examples of entrepreneurs that didn't have an option but to sleep in their office. But there you go.
correct.
You could also just choose to do that too if it fits you. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
amazing. Well, Will, I really want to thank you for all of your insights and just, completely opening up about the way you think, the way you operate as a business owner that is also a father and respects and preserves his family time and continues to find other interests that excite him and lead your definition of a successful life. So, really want to thank you for what you've shared today.
Honestly, brother, you're the model. I've always told you, like, your family was incredible. I was telling my other half, I'm like, you gotta meet Alex and his wife. They're like water, they adapt to anything. And, seeing
This
the
is
way
true.
that you and your partner did it, to me, it's been an inspiration. And I'm not even saying it because we're talking, it's really been an inspiration. When I know when things get tough for me, I'm like, man, Alex is able to do it, and he has way more kids. Why not? So it really is an inspiration, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, man. They are definitely my proudest achievement. So I thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely, brother.